We always like zooming out and thinking about the big picture on ESPN Cricinfo, so who better to ask about the state of global cricket than a man who's been playing for New Zealand for 15 years, who's captained his country and has won the orange cap at the IPL as well, Kane Williamson. Can I start by asking you, in general terms, how you think cricket has changed in the 15 years since you made your international debut?
Yeah, I mean, in so many respects. I mean, T20 cricket had started, but we were all still in that phase of I think, red ball being the pinnacle, the big driving force behind young cricketers' aspirations, and then the growth of the T20 game's just been incredible. It's brought new audiences in. It's now a huge part of all calendars, whether that's the franchise space, which was years down the line from 15 years ago. But yeah, now we're sort of in a time where there's three formats sort of trying to find their place. So it's changed a huge amount, and I suppose with that change, which is natural, that the T20 formats gain so much attention. It's fast. It's entertainment, which is it's short and it's sharp, which not just in cricket, but that seems to be happening in all different industries nowadays. That it's really got a strong hold on the sport, and then into that franchise space, which you see in other sports around the world, which is becoming bigger and bigger, and obviously the IPL at the top of that tree, and there are other competitions as well. So there's so much cricket happening in the world, and so many different opportunities for players, and with that change, the interesting part, I suppose, for me is what messages that sends to your young players and what they aspire to be now. And you can only say that that's gone from perhaps, not entirely, but from a pure test focus where that was the start of my career as a youngster, to maybe looking at playing in the IPL or playing in some of these other big leagues, and country versus franchise and all that sort of discussion that we're having these days.
Yeah, you would have been a teenager, I think, sort of breaking into the pro game during the first season of the IPL. I guess it would have been something new, something different. For the players that are breaking into professional cricket now, it's something that they've grown up with, is established, and obviously it's big business as well. There's a lot of money on offer over here.
It's big business. It's serious. It's competitive. It's of the highest standard, and I think that's what we all saw when it was just Test cricket and ODI cricket, where perhaps the measure of a player, or I know all my favourite players were all the big Test players that I loved, and then they all naturally played the other formats too. But and then the T20 came onto the scene, and it was kind of fun. It was short. How long will this be around for? And the proof is there now that it's here to stay and dominate the sport largely.
Do you feel like there has been a big shift in the past couple of years, especially? Obviously, there have been T20 leagues around the world for a long time, but now IPL franchises specifically are buying teams around the world. Someone like Mumbai Indians have teams in the USA, UAE, South Africa, recently bought a team in the 100. It does feel like we're moving towards a slightly different model maybe to how cricket was run 15 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. The leagues are getting bigger, and the IPL's getting bigger, and some of these leagues are getting a little bit longer as well. So there's only so much time, and a large part of the calendar now has a real focus on the franchise space, and how that affects the different nations and the different size nations is very different. But ultimately, it does affect everybody in some way, and I think just at the moment it's about where we land and some of the solutions that we can come up with in terms of how we sort of hold on to the value of the international game, the different formats, whether we still focus on all of them because the franchise T20 space is here to stay.
You mentioned the sort of different size boards. Where do you feel New Zealand specifically fits into that? Because clearly there's a sort of, I feel anyway, a big three of India, Australia and England, and then New Zealand are probably one of the more middle-sized, middle-class type boards. Where do you feel that has changed over the sort of 18 seasons now of IPL?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, we're a small country and a smallish economy, certainly relative to some of the big nations. But I know, when I first started, it would be sort of quite long FTPs, and you would be playing kind of everybody over that long period of time, and that's changed because time's changed. There's just, it's so difficult to fit everything in that there's kind of a priority focus. And you mentioned some of the big three and their the focus on sort of the 5 Test match series that they have, and I'm a fan of watching those too. So but where that leaves everybody else, not just in terms of how they fit in their international cricket, but how we end up playing each other, or how you can still get sort of that even competition across the board, and not just that, but still create that pathway for young players to sort of see their heroes perhaps playing for their country to a certain extent. And look, it's going to change. It is changing, and it has changed. But how we still try and maintain that a little bit, whether that's through different windows, where there is still that focus for perhaps shorter periods of time. Like I'm not too sure because there's so many moving parts at the moment.
I guess talking about sort of bilateral international cricket, one of the big changes that's happened is we've had the introduction of the World Test Championship. That was something that I'm sure you look back on that week in Southampton beating India as one of the best, if not the best, wins of your career. Do you think that is something that can transform or has already transformed Test cricket to something that's more compelling for a young player?
Definitely. I mean, the context now in Test cricket is certainly increased the effort and results. I mean, we don't see draws anymore, basically, in Test cricket. So every team's pushing for a result. Why? There's something on it. For us, as a country, winning the inaugural Test Championship final was really special, and a great moment in our history. So there is that. Teams do want to win that. You put a tournament in front of somebody or a team, and they're always quite keen to win it. Everybody's competitive. So context is something that's been spoken about for a while now, and it is great to see that there's an effort to do that. It's just how you keep sort of tinkering it, because there's so many different opinions with teams and who they play, and how you sort of continue to make it level. So it's tricky though.
Yeah,
12 months in a year, eh? It's difficult.
If they could invent a 13th, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
What is your take on the World Test Championship format at the moment? Because I think that's something that ICC have said they're going to review. I think, back home in England, it's been criticised to a certain extent in terms of being confusing or hard to follow. But it definitely does feel for New Zealand, for South Africa, for those sort of more middle-sized boards, it's added a lot, and they've shown that there are opportunities to reach the final within the current system as it is. Do you think it needs tinkering and tweaking a little bit, or do you think it's pretty much right as it is?
Yeah, I mean, it probably does, and it's no fault of the teams. They get the cards that they're dealt, and they try and make use of what's in front of them and take those opportunities. And naturally, it's the fact that it's different for each team, I think, is not ideal. But look, anytime you get the opportunity to sort of review after a 2-year Test Championship window to try and tweak it a little bit, that's fine. It's still in its infancy, really, as a competition. So, I think you're always going to look at those things.
Is there anything specific you think you look at and you think that needs to change?
Gosh, yes, probably, but I don't really know right now. I need to sit down and think a little bit more about it. It comes back to scheduling, I think, and how you fit it all in to what you prioritise, and if it is the Test Championship, I love Test cricket, and I'd love to see it stay, and I'd love to see it be a pathway for young cricketers still, alongside the T20 format, whether that's more in the franchise space, how that sort of marriage works, I'm not sure, but yeah. And then, if you can prioritise windows where teams are playing each other consistently and somewhat evenly, then I think it just makes it a slightly more level competition.
Do you think windows are an important principle then within the context of franchise leagues obviously growing so much, taking up so much of the calendar, the idea that you do have specific times in the year where international cricket is the thing going on and it's still seen as treated as the pinnacle by players coming through?
Yes, I mean it's going to be a shared space, and it is now already, but at the moment there's sort of no clear windows that meet everybody's needs, and that's the tough part. You got summers everywhere somewhere, so it's tricky to fit that in. But I think if you do have clear windows and you do allow sort of that full focus on if it's franchise at a franchise time or it's international at the international time, then you can just take your attention there rather than what we're seeing a lot is players having to make decisions and that sort of, I think, takes away a little bit from one part, whether it's the international or the franchise space.
You mentioned earlier about sort of the challenge to juggle all the formats of the game. You've clearly been someone who's had a very long, successful ODI career. Where do you see 50-over cricket fitting into this whole discussion? Is it something that we're only going to see in pinnacle events? And do you feel like those bilateral ODI series have sort of already fallen away to a certain extent?
Yeah, look, I think it's heading in that direction. I still think the ODI World Cup is at the top of the list in terms of an international event to win. But yeah, I sort of see the one-day format probably giving way a little bit, and it's just a timing thing. It's so difficult now. I remember when I first started, you'd have a tour for 6 weeks, and you'd play 3 tests, and you'd play 5 ODIs, and you'd be away for 6 weeks, 2 months, and you'd probably have 2 warm-up games in there somewhere too, and that's just impossible now. You tend to go from one thing to the next, and so it may well be the thing that gives way. We know T20's here to stay, whether that's major events too. Naturally, there's going to be a big calendar of the franchise T20 cricket, and yeah, the decisions that are made and what's prioritised with that, they're the big ones.
When we sort of talk about these changes, do you generally reflect and think, this is really exciting, what a great time for the sport, there's all this money in it? Or do you have some concerns about the future of, what it looks like for a young New Zealand player coming in now and which direction they're getting pulled in potentially?
Yeah, I mean, change is inevitable, and it'll land somewhere and the picture will become a little bit more clear, and at the moment we're sort of all moving with it and sort of all a bit curious to see, where it lands. And it's going to be in sort of, it's going to be sitting next to franchise sport, and we see in so many other sports where that's now a big part of the calendar, and then players, whether it's football or even sort of the NBA or some of these American sports where players are released, and who knows? It's going to look a little bit different, and it's just up to, I think, players and boards and to try and navigate that space closely and try and sort of be left in a healthy place, really. But it's still, there's still some time before that picture becomes clear. Yeah.
For you personally, you obviously have spent a long time playing in the IPL across your career. You've had those opportunities, and I think you're sort of maybe heading into a space in your career where you're taking up a few more chances in other franchise leagues as well.
Sitting
I think
here chatting to you. Yeah.
But you were in South Africa earlier in the year, and
yeah.
you got a couple of deals. Is that sort of what you see maybe coming into the picture a bit more for you towards the end of your career? Just not. It's not a big focus. I enjoy doing
things that are a little bit different as well. You mentioned that I've done it for a long time and have really loved it and still am doing it, you know, and I think there's just a balance to strike, and you know, having the opportunity to go and play in South Africa, which is an incredible competition. I really enjoyed that, and so some of this change it's quite interesting because it's not just the global game, but there's all these little, I guess, these decisions that are also left at boards and how we sort of try and make it all work in conjunction of what the priorities are with individual boards as well. So it's quite interesting, but I still absolutely love playing for New Zealand, and I'm looking forward to doing that again in the future. And but it is nice. There are some other options you can have, and I think with a young family as well, it's nice that they can have me around a little bit. So yeah.
But you're still looking at international cricket and seeing it very much as something that drives you every day, motivates you to keep playing in that space?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I've come from and what I've grown up doing, and feel really grateful that that's the case. You know, it's different international. You're playing for your country, playing for your franchise. They're quite different environments, and yeah, I've loved every minute of that. And you know, some of these changes in terms of where things land will probably be a little bit, probably after my playing time. I don't know, but things are moving quickly, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Brilliant. Ken, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers.